Hi, Mr. Trutna. We're on Unit 1, Assignment number 6, Notes. Let's get rolling. Okay, 3 terminology we're going to go over, then we're actually going to practice this terminology after we go over it. Okay, so there are 3 types of rigid motion. Rigid motion just means when you move something around on a graph. And we're going to go over the 3 types, and then we're actually going to do the 3 types of rigid motion. Okay, so I'm going to give you definitions. I'm going to tell you what each type is. The first type is what we call a translation. And when you translate something, that means to slide a shape. So when you're doing a translation, you're sliding a shape around on the graph. Okay, another type of rigid motion is a reflection. And when you do a reflection on a graph, that means to flip. So you're going to flip a shape around when you do a reflection. And the third type of rigid motion is called a rotation. And to rotate something, that means to turn the shape. Okay, so you are going to either, when you're doing rigid motion, you're going to flip, turn, or slide the shape around. Okay, so you're going to do a translation, a reflection, or a rotation. And what we are going to do is we are going to take shape A, B, C, D, and we're going to do all three of these rigid motions with shape A, B, C, D. Okay, and whoops, sorry about that, guys. All right, so in shape ABCD, we're going to have A is going to have coordinates of 1, 1. We're going to graph these in a second. B is going to have coordinates of 4, 1. C's coordinates, point C's coordinates are going to be 4, 5. And point D's coordinates are going to be 1, 3. Okay, and then we're going to do a couple of things. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to translate A, B, C, D 5 units to the left and 6 units down to make A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. So whenever we're doing a rigid motion, whenever we use this symbology, that A with the apostrophe there and the B, the C, the D with the apostrophe, we call that prime. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. Then the second thing we're going to do is we are going to reflect A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime on the y-axis to make A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime 180 degrees to make A triple prime, B triple prime, C triple prime, D triple prime. Okay, so this is going to be our task for today. So let's start at the top right here. We're going to take shape ABCD. So let's go ahead and let's graph shape ABCD. So A is over 1, up 1. There's A. B is over 4, up 1. Put a point there, and that's B. And you should be doing this on your own graph paper. C is over 4, up 5. So there's point C. And D is over 1 up 3. So there's point D, and then connect A to B, B to C, C to D, D to A. Okay, so that's going to be our first shape right there. So notice what we just did is we just did this part right here, where we did shape A, B, C, D with A, B, C, and D. Now we're going to do our first rigid motion, which is translate. So translate means to slide. So we're going to slide this shape 5 units to the left and 6 units down to make A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Okay, so let's do 1 point at a time. So let's start at point A. We're going to slide it 5 units to the left. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A prime would end up with at the point -4, -5. Okay, now let's do point B. So 5 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, puts us right there. And then we go 6 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So B prime would end up down here with the coordinates of -1, -5. All right, let's translate C. So 5 units to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So C prime would end up with the coordinates of -1, -1. And D, same thing, 5 to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units down. There is D prime. And then let's go ahead and connect A prime to D prime, D prime to C prime, C prime to B prime, B prime to A prime. Okay, so we just did this part right here where we translated A, B, C, D. So the original shape, 5 units to the left and 6 units down to make A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Now what we're going to do is we're going to reflect A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, in other words, my blue shape, and we're going to reflect it on the y-axis to make A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime. Okay, so whenever we reflect something, remember reflection means to flip the shape. So what you want to do is, in order to reflect the shape, one trick that you can do, and you might want to do this now, and I'll pause the video to give you a second, put your tracing paper on top of shape A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, and then trace that shape onto your tracing paper. Okay, so I will pause the video and go ahead and do that. You should be tracing shape A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime onto your tracing paper. Now, what you also want to do is, on your tracing paper, once you have this shape traced, go ahead and trace the y-axis. And that's because what we're going to do is we're going to reflect A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime on the y-axis. So that means we're going to flip A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, and we're going to flip it over the y-axis, and then we're going to make A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime. Okay, so what you do with your tracing paper is, and what you do with your y-axis is just take your tracing paper and flip your tracing paper over, line up your y-axis again, and then you will see that when you do that, C prime ends up right here at the point +1, -1. And we're going to call that C double prime. Okay, D prime would end up at the point +4, -3. So D prime ends up right there, and we call that D double prime. A double prime Okay, now we're going to take B prime, and when we reflect it over the y-axis, B prime, which has coordinates of -1, -5, will become positive 1, negative 5, and we're going to label that as B double prime, and A prime, which has coordinates of negative 4, negative 5, when we reflect it over the y-axis, its coordinates are going to be positive 4, negative 5, and we're going to refer to that as A double prime. Okay, connect the points, A double prime to B double prime to C double prime to D double prime and back to A double prime. And what we now have just done is we reflected A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime on the y-axis or across the y-axis. Now, one thing that I want you to notice is that when you reflected it over the y-axis or on the y-axis, the point C prime, which was one space away from the y-axis, stayed one space away from the y-axis. It's just on the other side of the y-axis. Same with all the points if you look at them. G prime was 4 spaces away from the y-axis. When we reflected it, G double prime was 4 spaces away from the y-axis, just on the other side of the y-axis. Same with B prime and same with A prime. So one way to check to see if you've reflected correctly is you take the shape that you're reflecting and just know that it's going to get flipped over and all the points are going to stay the same distance away from that axis. It's just going to be on the other side of the axis, okay? All right, now we're going to go to the last step, and the last step is we're going to take the green shape, A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime, and we're going to rotate it 180 degrees, okay? And we're going to make A triple prime, B triple prime, C triple prime, D triple prime when we rotate it 180 degrees. Okay, so to rotate a shape, here is my suggestion that you should do. With your tracing paper, you already have this done, but you could do it with a new piece of tracing paper if you want to. Trace A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime, okay, on your tracing paper, and then also trace just a little t right where the x and the y-axis intersect. So what you would do is, what I'm explaining is, and I can't show this, but you're going to trace this green shape right here, which is A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime, onto your tracing paper. Then you're going to trace you're going to trace the y-axis from positive 3 to negative 3, and the x-axis from negative 3 to positive 3. Okay, about that far. So you're going to trace a little bit of the x and the y-axis, and when you trace x and the y-axis, also have the double prime shape exactly where you want. Okay, then what you're going to do is you're going to take your pencil and put your tracing paper lined up perfectly with the axis and with this double prime shape, my green shape. Put your pencil right on the origin, so right at 0, 0, and then you're going to spin your tracing paper 180 degrees. And you could spin it clockwise, you could spin it counterclockwise, it does not matter, but when you're done spinning it or rotating it 180 degrees, you will notice that your shape is going to be up here in what we call quadrant 2. Okay, and D double prime is going to be at, okay, so when we rotate it, let's rotate A double prime, which has coordinates of positive 4, negative 5, will become, its coordinates should be, if you do it right, should be negative 4, positive 5. So that's, and that will become what we call A triple prime. B double prime, which has coordinates of positive 1, negative 5, its coordinates when you rotate it 180 degrees will become negative 1, positive 5. So B triple prime will end up here. Okay. C double prime, which has coordinates of positive 1, negative 1, when you rotate it 180 degrees, its coordinates will turn into negative 1, positive 1. So that would be C triple prime there. Didn't really draw it clearly. And D double prime, which has coordinates of positive 4, negative 3, When you rotate it 180 degrees, its coordinates will be -4, +3. So D triple prime would be right there. Connect the points, A triple prime to B triple prime to C triple prime to D triple prime. Okay, and there we go. So what we've done is we started with the original shape, ABCD. We translated it down to the blue shape, A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Then we reflected the blue shape over or on the y-axis and made A double prime, B double prime, C double prime, D double prime, which is the green shape. Then we took that green shape and we rotated it 180 degrees back up here to the gray shape to make A triple prime, B triple prime, C triple prime, D triple prime. Okay. All right. Let's go down to the next part of the notes, the description of graphs. We're going to go over actually 4 different kinds of graphs just really quickly. I'm just going to give you the names of them. So here are the 4 names of the graphs that you need to be familiar with, and you need to know what they look like. We have linear graphs. We have exponential graphs. And we have what we call step graphs, which some people refer to as a ladder graph. And then we have S-graphs. S-graphs. Okay, so a linear graph, let's jump over to a linear graph. So a linear graph would be any graph that when you end up graphing it on an X and a Y coordinate, it turns out to be a line. Okay, so and it could be any line. The line could be sloped up, it could be sloped down, it could be horizontal, it could be vertical, but as long as it makes a line, and remember a line is represented by having arrows at both ends, that would be linear. So linear translated means to make a line. Okay, when you have an exponential graph would be something that looks like this. We call it a smooth curved graph. So when you have an exponential graph, it's going to look like something like that right there. Okay, you put arrows at the end. Notice it follows a nice smooth curve. Now the nice smooth curve doesn't have to look, it could be anywhere on the graph. So let me draw you another one of a possibility of an exponential graph. It could be anywhere on the graph. It could be, say, down here, and it could go like that. All right, but the one thing that it does when you have an exponential graph is that it never quite, when you follow it, it never quite gets straight up and down vertical, and it never goes flat. It's always slightly going down, and this one here, it's always slightly going up and a little to the left, okay? A step graph is like a ladder graph. So when you have a step graph, they're very easy to recognize when you see one on a graph. It would be something that looks like this. It would kind of go like, it would look like a line segment, but then it would stop. And then right above where it stopped, it would go again. And right above where that stopped, it would go again. So you would have, you can see why they call it a ladder graph. It kind of looks like a ladder or steps as you walk up them. Okay, very easy, and it could go down. This one happens to be going up. Okay, then we have what we refer to as S-graphs. S-graphs tend to follow a very particular type of equation. We're not going to get into that, but an S-graph looks like exactly like we described it. It kind of looks like the letter S. So when you see an S-graph, it's going to look like this right here. Notice that it follows and it kind of looks like the letter S. There we go. Notes for assignment number 6.